So, dear ladies and gentlemen, a sincere welcome to the remarkable Gaia-X Roadshow Ljubljana networking event. Today's journey will take us into the world of data spaces in the EU, focusing on the realm of manufacturing, while also providing us with an inspiring day filled with knowledge exchange. Our goal is to bring together key stakeholders, companies, decision makers, and interested parties in Slovenia who play a vital role in shaping data spaces for production. So this is the unique opportunity for connecting, collaborating, and getting acquainted with the Gaia-X system. I would also like to present to you a strong partnership on today's event, that is Gaia-X Hub Slovenia, the ICT Horizontal Network, and the Association for Informatics and Telecommunications at the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Slovenia. Together with Gaia-X European Association for Data and Cloud, AISBL, they are building a bridge between innovation, knowledge, and opportunities for the future. But before we start, we would like to make an apology. There is supposed to be the ideal component matching demonstrator, but due to unforeseen circumstances, the device could not come here from Vienna, was not transported here from Vienna, but we acquired a person who will present it. So, I suggest we begin with today's event with our first speaker, Mr. Nenad Šutanovac, Director of ICT Association of Slovenia, Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Slovenia. Please welcome.
Hvala lepa za prijazen uvod. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dobro jutro and good morning and a warm welcome to the Gaia-X Roadshow Ljubljana event. Special welcome, of course, to our international guests from different countries to Slovenia and to this event. Some of you even for the first time in Slovenia, I'm sure not the last. As the Director of ICT Association of Slovenia, I'm here today to welcome you at this what promises to be an insightful and engaging day. One of our missions in the ICT Association is to foster innovation and promote collaboration within our vibrant tech community, and hosting an event like this aligns perfectly with that goal. Today we embark on a journey into the world of Gaia-X, a vision that transcends borders and boundaries. Gaia-X is not just a project, it's an invitation to cooperate, a vision of a digital world where data is secure, privacy is respected, and innovation knows no limits. More about Gaia-X will be presented later. However, I would like to stress the importance of this European initiative in building up an European common data market, as the data is a basis for digital or better data economy. Europe needs to become a big country in terms of data to be able to actually compete globally. Also at ICT Association, we are a part of two European projects, building European data spaces, and finally, there is European regulation like Data Governance Act, Data-X, Digital Services Act, Digital Market Act, and so on. Not all finalized yet, but this regulation is trying to support European data market and boost the fair competitiveness and innovation based on this common data market. And we strongly believe Europe can build a strong data economy with its data spaces, interoperability initiatives, and based on its own infrastructures as well. And here it's where Gaia-X comes on the stage. And we strongly believe data is an essential resource for economic growth, for productivity, competitiveness, innovation, job creation, and societal progress in general, and the development of artificial intelligence solutions as well. In all that, we also see great potential of Slovenia to become one of the leading countries in this data and AI economy, we can call it as well. We have a privilege today of hearing from visionary speakers who will guide us through this journey. First, we are honored to have Mr. Francesco Bonfiglio, the CEO of Gaia-X, who will share his invaluable insights into the core principles and global significance of Gaia-X. Following Mr. Bonfiglio, we'll hear from Mr. Roman Gerer, representing the EU ProGiant project, a shining example of collaborating efforts within the European Union. Throughout today's program, we'll engage in provoking discussions. Our panel discussion, focusing on the state of play of Gaia-X in Slovenia, will feature representatives from the local Gaia-X community who are at the forefront of shaping the digital landscape here. Alongside them, we'll also have international Gaia-X representatives who bring a wealth of international expertise. I encourage you all to participate, ask questions, share insights, and seize the opportunity we all have with that. Gaia-X is a project of and for the community and economy, and your contributions are essentials for its success. Thank you all for being here today, and let's make the most out of this meaningful event today together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nina Šutanovac, for these opening words. It was quite splendid introduction to our first keynote speaker on today's event. Taking the stage is the CEO of Gaia-X Association, who is responsible for the overall strategy and program execution. With over 30 years of experience in consulting and information technology, he brings his insights into cloud and digital market needs, along with his vision for how Gaia-X can revolutionize them. He will touch on points such as what is Gaia-X, how do we achieve it, how can it benefit you, and what comes next. So, please welcome Mr. Francesco Bonfiglio. Welcome to the event, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, dear guests. Thank you, Nina. Thanks to the ICT Association, to the Slovenian Hub, and all the guests we have here today. It's a privilege for me being here together with my friend Pierre, who is sitting somewhere. Oh, here he goes. Because we don't have much time to go around and speak. Well, that's what I do every day, but I don't have enough time just to be open to any kind of question coming from the people. So some time ago we decided, given everybody is asking the same question, what is Gaia-X? What's in it for me? Why should we join? What are you doing? We said, okay, let's go around and make a roadshow. So I'm not a big fan of the picture you saw at the beginning, but the intent was kind of a rock band. You know, rock band go touring around. And so this is the initial venue of the Gaia-X Roadshow, where we want to meet as many people as possible, not just members, but also non-members, get as many questions, even the difficult ones. So please be open. I know Slovenian people maybe sometimes are shy and don't want to ask questions. Ask very questions. You're not shy, okay. So there's two families. Somebody told me I have to stimulate the discussion. So first of all, State of the Union. I want to give you a little bit of an overview of where we are. But like Gregor said, I want to, first of all, tell you why we are doing what we're doing. And if those of you believe this is a technology project, I have bad news for you. This is not a technology project. This is an economy project. So let's talk about data economy. Everybody's got his own view, maybe, of data economy. Most of the comments I hear tell me that there is not a clear understanding of whether data economy is real or not. People still distinguish between real economy, data economy. Some people believe data economy is still the economy related to the information technology sector. Well, let me show you some slides. Maybe you have seen this. This is the Standard & Poor's index. It's the most famous financial index in the world, one of the most famous. And you see what happened in the last 40 years. The companies listed in this index of course, produce goods or services, and 40 years ago, the companies producing intangible constituted less than 10% of the overall portfolio of S&P 500. Now, they constitute more than 90%. So this should tell you something. Economy is shifting from tangible to intangible. This has nothing to do with the Gaia-X Association, the European Commission, the Data Act. This is real economy. So the amount of real economy is strongly related to intangible. What is intangible? Intangible is related to information. Information is related to data. So like it or not, we have been boiling like a frog in the water without knowing that the economy has changed and is totally driven by data. And that's a fact. Another fact is that 3 years ago, and I'm pretty proud of that, when I was going around and talking about digital sovereignty, I used to say two things. First of all, the sovereignty is a political concept. It's not a technology concept. So you cannot be sovereign. You can be in control of technology, yes. You can talk about technology autonomy, technology controllability, but not sovereignty. Nonetheless, the term has been mutated. So some way, somehow, everybody understands that being sovereign means being in control. So everybody accepted that definition, but 3 years ago, not a long time ago, the industry believed sovereignty was a political thing, was a political action, was something, a kind of a political way to approach the fact that we are a slave of other countries' technology providers. Nowadays, this is IDC. And you can see IDC, Gartner, Forrester, so definitely not European analysts saying the same thing. Now the CEOs see digital sovereignty as a key need, a key priority, but also as a key business opportunity. So delivering sovereign technologies, delivering sovereign services, delivering sovereign products is a business opportunity. So, is that economy real? Yes, it is. And my simple definition is that data economy is is realized through the digitalization of value chains. Today we will see an example, which is EuroProGigant, is one of the many projects that are adopting the Gaia-X standard, but they are projects in the real world. So what are they doing? You can ask our friend here later, but basically what they are doing, they are putting together players across a value chain or supply chain or production chain, doesn't matter, and exchanging data one another. Why? Because the only way to improve your processes, to reduce your cost, to increase, or better, reduce your time to market, increase your quality, create new products, is having the data of all the participants in the value chain. This is a complete paradigm shift. Until now, people were scared, and still are scared, of sharing their data, even if they don't know what to do with it, because most of our data is not utilized. But nobody wants to share the data. Why? Because, well, this is my intellectual property, and if I share my data, I lose it. Okay, so what do? You keep the money under the bed because you don't want to put it in the bank, because you don't trust the banks. That's what my grandmother used to say. But it still is the case with data, exactly the same. So creating value chain, digital value chains, is made through the concept of data spaces. So a data space is, let me say, a digital version of a value chain. And that's what drives data economy. So without exchanging the data, without the concept of creating common data spaces, which requires mechanisms to trust each other, there is not going to be data economy. So what the problem is? The problem is that what we're talking about is already happening. So if you look at the market share of cloud service provider, cloud per se does not produce data economy, but we should agree that without the cloud, we wouldn't be talking about data economy. Cloud was an accelerator, an enabler for exchanging data, for simplifying and amplifying the computing power And basically, we need the cloud to make the data economy, but cloud does not produce data economy. Nonetheless, cloud demand is increasing, and the European cloud service providers are decreasing their market share, which means we are increasing our dependence from non-European cloud service providers, which is not necessarily a problem, but it's a fact. Another fact is that the the data economy is going to constitute in 2025 8 to 10% of the GDP, which is already substantial. But you have to remember that our economy is made of small, medium business. So we will not be able to compete with large value chains across the world. We will not be able to compete with large technology providers or cloud service providers unless we start federating our ecosystems, unless we start federating our value chains in the manufacturing, in the automotive, in the energy, in the cloud service provider space. A second element is that we are not using our data, so most of our data are still untapped, unutilized. 70 to 80% of the data is not utilized. And we need to create common data spaces. It's like creating a common market of data. So we need common data spaces, and last but not least, to create common data spaces and to federate, we need to have sovereign solutions. Because without sovereignty, there is not going to be, without digital sovereignty, there's not going to be political sovereignty. In other words, you are not in control of the economy anymore if the economy is totally driven or substantially driven by technologies. And these are the words of Minister Bruno Le Maire. No political sovereignty without digital sovereignty is not just my words. So this is the conviction of many of our political leaders in Europe. Another problem is this one, because you may say, okay, this is a political prayer. Think about data spaces. What is the magic sauce about data spaces? Think about what you have to do to make a project like EuroProGigant that you will hear later. You have to put together players that in nature are competitors. You have to put together I mean, they have to trust each other, they have to exchange data, suppliers and providers. And you have to do it in a way that each one has a benefit. So you have to find a business case. You have to convince everybody that they need to collaborate. You have to calculate the benefit for all. It's a business modeling exercise, which is quite complex. Then you go to the technical side and say, okay, what do I need now? You need to trust each other's identity. Okay. Then you need to trust each other's sources of data. Then you need to trust each other's way to access the data you make available and the way you use the data. Then you need to trust the platforms you use to exchange the data. Then you need to trust the federator, so the actor that will orchestrate and govern the federation. So you need to trust. So the technical problem is not data exchange. The technical problem is not what cloud platform I'm going to use. There is, again, a paradigm shift. Technology in this new world of data spaces is focused on creating trust. Because without creating trust, you will not be able to convince my friend to exchange data with me. And without convincing him, we will not be able together to build new services or product data-driven. Think about now, we do it on a global space. Or for example, we federate a manufacturing data space created in Slovenia with a manufacturing data space created in Austria with a manufacturing data space created in Japan. Or we federate a mobility data space with the energy data space, with the smart cities data space, because they have to talk to each other. Each one of them have gone through the same exercise. So they found their partners, they identified the trust mechanisms, but they implemented different trust mechanisms. So again, you smash your face against the wall. When you put together different ecosystems, you have to trust the trust frameworks of the others. You see, it's almost impossible. The only solution is to have a common trust framework, which is a common set of rules that defines how you can trust a digital service, whatever, a storage service, an AI service, a Gen AI service, an LLM model, whatever. And on the other side, you need to have a technology framework that helps verify the compliance to those rules. Otherwise, those rules are just written on paper, and nobody will trust that the service you are buying or using is compliant. That's what Gaia-X do. We develop a common trust framework, and we are now delivering this through what we call the GXDCH. It's a very bad acronym, the Gaia-X Digital Clearinghouse. Basically, it's a node of execution of the Gaia-X compliance services. We started from the problem, which is regain control of technology, because we are not in control of technology. If technology drives the economy, well, we need to ask ourselves the question, are we in control or controlled by technology? And unfortunately, the answer is that we are controlled by technology. And we also need to ask the question, are we ready for this data economy? Well, look at the data ecosystems. They are all split. There is no common way to exchange the data. There is no common standard. There is no common ontology. There is no common trust mechanisms to access the data from different domains. Look at the infrastructure space. We have a lot of infrastructures, on-premises, private, hybrid, public, cloud, but they, most of the time, don't speak to each other. They're not interoperable. And sometimes, or most of the times, they are developed on proprietary architectures. So again, we have disjoint world. So we need to regain control of the technology, and we need to achieve this objective. Basically, the Gaia-X, remember the X, the upper part of the X is the data ecosystem part, the lower part of the X is the infrastructure ecosystem part, and what we do is to build that pie or wheel in the middle, which is made of three things: federation, compliance, and data exchange. Why? Because if you want to federate, if you want to create a common data space, a common ecosystem where you trust each other, you need to have some federation mechanisms, federation rules. And data exchange, why? Because you need to exchange data in order to build data economy, of course, but you just don't need data connectors. You need rules to exchange data in a way that I have control on who accesses the data, and I have control on what type of data is used on my side. So access management and usage policy management. And last but not least, we need compliance to make sure that the technologies we use are compliant to the rules that we have defined together. This is what Gaia-X does, and those three pillars are basically the structure of the Gaia-X framework. So what we do, we define the Gaia-X framework. You can see it on our website. It's made of these three pillars, and there is three layers. The top layer is the functional specification, the middle layer is the technical specifications, the lower layer is the software components. So we are not just talking or writing, white papers. We are developing a real stack. We have defined this trust engine, which is based on the concept of compliance that maybe we can discuss further, and we'll not go into the technical details, but all I'm talking about is based on a real, let me say, compliance workflow that implies several actors and entities and implemented through the Gaia-X trust framework, which is run inside the Gaia-X digital clearinghouses. So all the stuff I'm telling you, potentially you can forget about it. Keep it in mind, but there will be a point in time, which is going to be by the end of this year, where anybody can make use of it without having to, scratch your head to understand all the technical details. Don't worry. It's going to be something available, up and running, easy to get access. What I mean, you're going to have a wizard you go through, a stepper that will tell you what you have to do in order to become Gaia-X compliant and publish your service on the Gaia-X catalog. It's going to be easy. But there's a lot of complexity behind. And like I said, recently we have moved into the implementation of the digital clearinghouses. Why? Because you can keep talking, you can define the requirements, you can even design the architecture, you can even implement the software, but some way, somehow, the software has to run into a service in an execution node. So we decided to have a network of execution nodes across Europe that are interconnected, synchronized, and these execution nodes are called digital clearinghouse. You know what a clearinghouse is in the financial world? The clearinghouse is a place where you validate a transaction, a financial transaction, a value transaction. Given the value today is data, we decided to use the same word because basically the clearinghouse validates value transaction through the Gaia-X mechanisms. But we can have more time to discuss in detail. So another slide you can use, if you want a one-slider about Gaia-X, use this one. We started from the problem, disjoint ecosystems. We have disjoint data ecosystem, disjoint infrastructure ecosystems. We defined a solution, a joint ecosystem, through this Gaia-X framework, and now we are operationalizing it through this network of digital clearinghouses. Let's make it simple. This is the story after 3 years of work, and I think we should be pretty proud of that. Last but not least, what we're doing is totally in line with the European data strategy. Summarizing it, Europe wants to do 2 things. On one side, create a common market of data, like the common market in Europe, which means create common data spaces for the different sectors. And many of you should be aware of this. But how do you do that? You need common rules to exchange data. And that's what we're doing. On the other side, you need a computing continuum, because what we are talking about is a new era where data is everywhere. So data gravity makes data available everywhere. The old time where you can concentrate data in just a few hyperscalers across the ocean doesn't work anymore. So we need a new era of technology where cloud is hyper-distributed, hyper-connected. That's what computing continuum means. Otherwise, you will not be able, even using 5G, 6G, or 7G, to use the power of computing and to use the power of network unless you bring the algorithms as close as possible to where the data is generated and produced. So we don't have this type of technology, and we are helping this. Why? Through our mechanisms, we enable the creation of federated infrastructures. So we are enabling the creation of federated data ecosystems, common data spaces. We are enabling the creation of common infrastructure ecosystems, and we are doing this through our projects. So the state of play, we have a 5-year plan. Year 1, 21, was the year where we defined all the things I told you. It's a kind of specification year. Year 2 was the year where we developed it, and we started the first projects. We call them Lighthouse projects. We started with one only project, which is Catena-X. In year 3, we want to grow. In other words, year 3, 2023, is the year where we want to create the market pool, the market adoption. How we do that? Through projects. We have 11 Lighthouse projects and 100 of Gaia-X projects overall. Lighthouse projects are very big ones, specific ones, but we have 100 in the pipeline. And we have implemented this mechanism of the clearinghouse that so far is not yet public, but it will be by the end of the year. And we want basically to create the first public catalog of Gaia-X compliance services, and we want to enable, let me say, the inclusion of the Gaia-X compliance into the procurement rules of our users of technology. So if on one side Gaia-X is clear, so you know how to become Gaia-X compliant, then you have somebody offering Gaia-X compliance services. Then you have users that start to require Gaia-X compliance when they make procurement. You can create this snowball effect where the market, the industry, will start adopting the standard. We are not a formal body of standard. We are not a political entity. We are not policymakers. We are not lobbyists. We are building something that we hope will be adopted by the market because it is needed. But the only way to do it is to have real projects, real players in the market that like it, use it, and it will become a de facto standard. I think we are doing it pretty well. These are the projects I was mentioning about. And EuroProGigant is one of them. I'm happy we have, unfortunately, we didn't have the equipment to show it, but I'm sure there will be a chance for any one of you who wants to deep dive into any of these projects. We are open, we can put you in touch with the right people. But as you see, we have projects in the agriculture, in the automotive, in the energy, in the tourism, you name it. There's a lot of lighthouse projects. We tend to have one lighthouse project per sector, but you see, for example, mobility, we have 2, and there's going to be more and more. The more we have, the better. These projects are not funded by the European Commission, are not funded by the association, are not Horizon project. These are projects funded or co-funded by the companies. So they put their own money to build something they need in their business. Catena-X is the federation of BMW, Volkswagen, Daimler, Bosch, Siemens, Denso, and a bunch of other people that are competitor in nature. You can imagine that putting them together is not something we forced. They understood this was necessary for them to survive in the new era of data economy. They decided to do it. Yes, of course, they got funding also from the German government. But that's not the point. If it's something useful, you put the money, the government will follow you. This is an example of the demo catalog that will become public, but it's just to tell you that we have almost 2,000 services ready to be published in this catalog. It's not a lot, but it's not nothing. That means we have dozens of service providers ready to publish Gaia-X compliant services. If you go on our website, you will find the web catalog. It's a demo catalog, but soon this will become a true catalog of Gaia-X compliant services. And this is in a nutshell the roadmap of what we have done, and I told you in a few minutes. So I think in the last 3 years we did a lot of work. We are more than 370 members, many working groups working on a consensus base, of course, all working in one direction and one mission. And last, I wanted to show you some of the progress. So when we started in 21, we had no projects, we had no services, we had no clearinghouse, and we had less members, of course. Actually, when we started, we had 22 members, which were the funding members. So now we have almost 380 members. We have 11 lighthouse projects, and like I said, 100 projects in the pipeline. We have 21 hubs, international hubs, including Slovenia. 16 verticals, working group, working on defining use cases in specific vertical sectors. We have a demo catalog collecting almost 2,000 services now, as we speak. And we have 2 nodes of the digital clearinghouse up and running. One is T-System and one is Aruba in Italy, but we have a pipeline of 10 nodes. And I hope Slovenia will be one of the next nodes, such that we have a network of nodes across Europe. With that said, that's why I believe Gaia-X is a kind of European Union for data economy, because we put together let me say, the economy dimension, the technology dimension, the industrial dimension, the regulation dimension in one single initiative, and we try to make it concrete and useful. With that said, I thank you very much, and I just wanted to finish with a joke. Sometimes I use ChatGPT, like all of you, I'm sure. And that's interesting because, people tend to ask you the same question. So go to ChatGPT, and sometimes it's working. So I asked, what is Gaia-X? And the answer was pretty good, as you see. Gaia-X is a European initiative that aims to create an ecosystem for open interoperable data and services to support the EU digital economy. Yes, it's not talking about a technical project. Then I asked why it is important. Again, very good description. Well, is it just a European initiative? We are trying to cut out the GAFAMs? Not at all. And again, ChatGPT was good in capturing. You know that ChatGPT is not inventing. Well, sometimes it invents something, but it's capturing information that it finds on the web. So possibly we pass the right message. We are an international association. If somebody asks the question, why you have Americans? Because that's the right way to do things. We want to do it together. We want to set new rules for the game in Europe. And American providers just want to play in Europe. And instead of reinventing their own rules, which they understood is not going to work, we want to do it collectively together. And it's working. And I say, anything like Gaia-X? And I said, well, yeah, there is a lot of initiatives like the Data Act, or invented something like the Data Governance Act in the United States. So be careful, sometimes ChatGPT is inventing stuff. And then I said, interesting. Why you compare Gaia-X to existing regulations? Is Gaia-X a regulatory body? I apologize for any confusions. Actually, he corrected, or she corrected herself, and gave a very good description. Do you know what the clearinghouse is? That's an interesting thing, because this is pretty new. And that's something that ChatGPT does. He invented totally what GXDCH is. So it's Gaia-X Data Collaboration Hub. It was pretty inventive, by the way. And I said, well, no, that's wrong. Gaia-X DCH stands for Gaia-X Digital Clearinghouse, a one-stop place to go and get Gaia-X certification of your services if you want. I just learned it from the Gaia-X communication. And he apologized and provided a very good description of the GXDCH. And that's not for you. Okay. So, that's all from my side, and I hope this was at least interesting and useful, apart from the last slide, which was not for this audience. You can distribute my slides, of course, to anyone who wants them. And I will be around for any questions in the panel later. So with that said, I give you the word back to you, Gregor.
Thank you very much. Many thanks to our keynote speaker. Thank you, and see you at the round table. So at this moment, our next keynote speaker, Gernot Baumgartner, was supposed to step on this stage, but unfortunately he has fallen ill. So instead of Mr. Baumgartner, I present to you Mr. Roman Gerer, Research Assistant at Technische Universität Wien. Many thanks for stepping in and coming to Ljubljana. I heard that the journey was so long. So our guest will discuss EU ProGiant, a pioneering project connecting European manufacturing digitally. It boosts industry efficiency, sustainability, and showcase the power of Gaia-X infrastructure. He will also present the use case ideal component matching, Streamlink component assembly for reduced manual labor and waste. Mr. Gerer, the stage is yours.
Yeah, hello together. I am from a different subject area than Gernot. Because of that, probably I can't dive in as deep as Gernot, but I will try to give an overview. EuProGigant is an Austrian-German binational project with a funding of about 10 million euro. We are working on the project for 4 years, ending in February 2025. And we have 23 project partners across Austria and Germany. We are also a Gaia-X Lighthouse project, and we are focusing on data spaces for manufacturing and industrial use cases with full GDPR compliance. Our aims are to identify and extract production data to make use of it and take possibilities to make production more efficient and to share the data in a secure way, or to share it over computer data so that the party doesn't have direct access to the data but can use the data for computational tasks. There are also some impacts that are prognosed. Yes, it's a map of our project partners. They are from very different branches, like MTU Aero Engines, which produces jet engines for planes, or Placer and Teurer, the market leader for railway monitoring systems. Currently, we are using Pontus X, a Web3 ecosystem, and Gaia-X Federation services. But with Gaia-X compliant self-descriptions, the slides are a little bit outdated. They are now called verifiable credentials. But yeah, I didn't have the time to change it. Also, other ecosystems are able to connect to our systems. We have 4 use cases to show applications of Gaia-X and interoperability. That's the ideal component matching that's presented at the end in a little bit deeper way, but without a demonstrator, unfortunately. The validation platform, which is about data monitoring of production machines, the CO2 footprint calculation. There are production data from, example, the validation platform is used to calculate the CO2 equivalent, which comes from the production, and it's also a target to give constructors and designers solutions to reduce the CO2 impact already in the design and construction of products. And last, there are the mobile processing machines demonstrated on Placer and Teurer's railway monitoring systems. There, the main subjects are the data acquisition and usage. If the machine goes to the workpieces instead of the workpieces come to the machines. The ideal component matching is about manufacturing. There are often things like two parts that have to match in a certain dimension. Often this is achieved by building it together, measure if it fits, disassemble it again, rework and build it together again. That's very costly, and we try to match the parts in front of assembly to eliminate the disassembly and the rework. The validation platform is a set of CNC milling machines. Example, there are the small milling machines from Heller, and they are mainly used for training, but they are also nice to use for data acquisition in laboratories. And yeah, the CO2 footprint, also described before, is about raising awareness of the crucial factors of CO2 emission in production, and to make an estimation that is also at the end verifiable to say or to get certificates for the emissions. The mobile processing platform. This is this measuring train from Placer and Teurer, and main problems are there are a lot of sensors that transmit data in many different ways, and on the one side we have to synchronize this data in a way that we can identify which data from the sensors fits together, and the other thing is the transmission of this data, because often at railway track there is not everywhere connection to some mobile networks that are able to transmit it, or the bandwidth is too low to transmit the data real time, and so the data has to be stored and transmitted somewhere later. We also have some demonstrators already running. One demonstration is our platform, which is reachable under portal.uiprogigant.io. There we have already some offerings that can be used and consumed. And we showed that already also at Hannover Fair with a running demonstrator that manufactures parts, and the manufacturing data of these parts, it's a very simple milling process, is shared on the platform and can be bought. and accessed, and also it can be used to run compute data jobs on separate on clusters. Here is the example of this catalog with the offerings, and the offerings can be selected, and there are also descriptions of these offerings, and via Ocean Protocol, that's a blockchain-based systems, this data can at the end be bought and used for computation jobs. Here is the example of the calculation of CO2 equivalents. Even for this data from the demonstrator, the data sets can be selected and then compute jobs for the calculation of the equivalents are run. And the important thing on that is the manufacturer, the data on which the computation job is run is not shared with the consumer who gets the CO2 calculation. So the data itself never leaves the manufacturing company. Some references, our self-description, which are now called verifiable credentials. On our catalog, there is, I hope you can see, yeah, it's there marked the service self-description that can be viewed. There's also possible to verify them over the Gaia-X compliance services. Like that, yeah, there are identified by some Ocean protocols, decentralized identifiers. And now to the ideal component matching. This is the spindle which we use in our use case. It's from an Heller CNC milling machine, and the parts, the goals are to reduce the working processes and to also make it traceable and log which parts are combined at the end. Here are these two sockets we use for that, these two, and the dimension that has to fit is the length of these sockets. There is only a very small tolerance that is allowed, and if the parts are out of this tolerance, they have to be reworked, and it's like you see it here, this part has to be assembled in full, only to measure at the end if they match and how much the rework is. And it's also the problem for each socket, there is a different rework measure. So this even can't be done in batch. And to achieve these goals, the manufacturer of the inner and the outer sockets measure the length of these sockets after the production. In our case, that are two different laboratories. One is at TU Darmstadt and the other is at TU Wien. And it's normal that in manufacturing, companies do not like to share their manufacturing data with the public, because other manufacturers can try to reverse engineer some process information out of this data, like how many parts do not fit or how many parts do have rework, and at the end it can be a disadvantage in competition. And so we have created this case Over a web platform, the sockets are scanned with a QR code, and a third party does the whole matching process for the assembler. The assembler only scans the socket, and over computer data he receives which socket of the batch he received from the manufacturing companies fit best together. It's also marked by the container, so he has a possibility to sort them even before assembly, so the worker always gets the same sockets at the same time to his working place and doesn't have to go and search for the sockets. Yeah. And the advantages in the end is time saving, improved quality, and it's also traceability about which parts with serial numbers are used, because now it's not tracked which parts are used. They are only put together, reworked, and then nobody knows which parts are in this spindle. So, yeah. The data can also at the end be accessed over our catalog, as mentioned before. And yeah, that's already the whole presentation. In October, on October 10th and 11th, we have our yearly open house day, where we show the whole set of our demonstrators. This time it's in Berlin. Registration is still open, I think, till end of September if you're interested. And if you have further questions, you can later ask me or my colleague Alexander Kinzer, who is also here from the TU Wien pilot factory. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and see you on the roundtable. Thank you very much. So ahead of us is definitely engaging panel discussion, where we will dive into a conversation about one of the most vital concepts in the modern digital world, Gaia-X, and how this concept is reflected within Slovenian ecosystem. However, before that, it's time to consolidate our thoughts on everything we heard so far and prepare for the concluding segment of today's event, which will include an opportunity for you and for your questions. So don't miss out the chance, and perhaps start formulating those questions on the coffee break, which is ahead of us. So let's meet again in this hall in about 20 minutes. Welcome back to the hall. I'm delighted to see you all here in the hall, to staying with us, especially right before the highlight of today's event. So it's time for panel discussion titled Gaia-X Current State and the Slovenian Ecosystem. It will be, of course, a unique opportunity to engage in a deep conversation about one of the most crucial concepts in the modern digital world, Gaia-X. I will present to you 4 exceptional panelists who are leading experts in digital innovation, technological development, and digital infrastructure. So, the panelists for our roundtable are Mr. Francesco Bonfoglio, CEO of Gaia-X. The first chair is yours. There should be with us Roland Federny, COO of Gaia-X, but unfortunately, he couldn't be here due to difficulties with connecting flights. So our next panelist is Pierre Gronlier, CTO of Gaia-X. Welcome to the stage. The second one, our next panelist, Alexander Kinzer, Research Assistant in the Technical University Wien. So the next chair is yours. And please welcome Boštjan Gomilšek, Director of Enterprise Software Solution at Result. And this chair is yours. So I would also like to invite the moderator of the panel, Mr. Flavio Fuart, Project Manager at the ICT Association of Slovenia at the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Slovenia. Dobrodošli, welcome. So the stage is now yours.
Thank you, Gregor. So first of all, before starting the discussion with our panelists, I have a question for you, for the public. Better? Okay. So I have a question for the public. Please raise your hands, those that have been involved in Gaia-X, but not attending events like this, but if you worked if you prepared Gaia-X specifications through the working groups, if you did any development of Gaia-X components, if you deployed use cases with Gaia-X components frameworks. So please raise your hands. I knew that Matic will raise his hand. Anyone else? So colleagues from the faculty of electrical faculty, partially, okay. Data spaces, any other implementation use case related with data spaces? 2 more. So we have 3, and out of the public that is already selected, that is already aware about the importance of data economy and of all these frameworks around it. So I would like maybe to start with you, Francesco. Are we doing anything wrong? So we have the awareness and we have 3 hands raised.
Yeah, you're a good friend. I don't think we're doing anything wrong. We're doing something big, and that's pretty normal when you try to change things that were not even addressed before. What we're trying to change is the way we look at technology, like I said before. So we now look at technology no more as a tool to manage data, to calculate, to correlate, to apply algorithms, to exchange data, to do whatever you want. But yes, of course, all that stuff, but most importantly, a tool to provide trust. And that's something that is unprecedented, period. This has not happened before. Second, data economy is another big thing. Like I said at the beginning of my presentation, that slide I showed about Standard & Poor's is not something, I invented. So the economists, so those scientists studying the economy evolution have realized that the new economy is driven by data. And when those people care about the money, they don't care about the technology. So we, and I think the audience here is very much connected one way or another to technology, need to start in a completely different way. If you know the problem between technologists and business people in any company is that they don't speak the same language. They don't understand each other. Now it's time to speak the same language, and it is difficult. So creating a data space, explaining what a data space is, starting a project, convincing that you have to use technology to build trust, it's all new stuff. And unfortunately, making new things is very difficult. But like I said, I think we are doing very well if we look at the results. Honestly, I believe Slovenia can do more, much more. And my suggestion is that, like I was talking before starting reinventing or starting a brand new project, which is a very good thing that I hope will happen soon, there's a lot of projects already going on where a Slovenian company should get in touch to see whether they can participate or not. It doesn't matter if the project was born in Germany, in Austria, in France. I'm sure there is Slovenian companies working in the automotive sector that would be interested in being part of Catena-X. I'm sure there is Slovenian companies working in the manufacturing that have been interested in being part of Europro Gigant. I'm sure there is Slovenian companies working in the tourism that would be interested in being part of Ionex, and on and on and on. And this is possibly a way to accelerate Slovenian involvement in data economy.
Yeah, so trust was first on your list, so maybe there is this organizational part, right, of trust, and then we also have to think about the technical implementations of those agreements and those contracts and so on. So, Pierre, as a CTO of Gaia-X, first of all, what is trust, right? And I hope you have an answer. And then why we should trust the trust framework of Gaia-X.
Thanks for the simple question. So Francesco started by the data space. That's quoting data space is the digitalization of a value chain. And there are a few words there, value and chain. How do we enable that? Through trust. What is trust? As an engineer, I will give a simple answer. When I don't know a word, I will go to the dictionary. And there is already a definition for trust that I will define as that's a risk assessment that you are making on an entity to be able to achieve a promise. The thing that we are enabling is how do you make this risk assessment? And to make this risk assessment, you need to have at least three types of information, three things. Information, a certain amount of information, we will call that maybe transparency. Being able to verify if that information is valid, legitimate, and the history of that information. Giving you an example, if you have a freshly graduated students, they might have the best diploma in the world. If you don't know them, the risk assessment to delegate him the full chain of your production warehouse might be delegate. You might not trust him for that. If you have working with someone for 20 years but they have no degree, you might still trust more. So trust, this is something that first of all you have to do. You cannot call an API and have trust. You cannot buy with the supermarket a trust. That's a risk assessment that you have to do. And Gaia-X helps you to make this assessment. Gaia-X helps you to scale this assessment, those type of information that is required for making those decisions, so that you can build those chain. When we talk about the chain, the value chain meaning that you have chain links, that they are one and after partner that you need to contractualize. So if you want to build the value chain, following the narrative, then the next step is how do you contractualize? Writing a contract. Right now, there is a very wide range of contract definitions. It goes from buying a house and you need to go to the notary. It's also putting a €2 coin in a vending machine. Both are contracts. They have few things in common. You get an offer, you have an agreement, and the intent to be legally binding to the result. That's the civil law definition of contract in Europe. And for every of those steps, those can be digitalized. An agreement that can be a PDF, a document, a text, but that could be also a machine-readable policies that are expressed in a machine language. The signing, you can sign it manually. In Europe, we have also regulation for digital signature. The negotiation, that's something that we can do using policy reasoning engines. So all those steps, when you start to deep dive into what's required to do the data transaction, can be assisted. I've tried to avoid the term automate because that might be a bit scary and that's dedicated to software developers. But to automate, to assist, to help, to streamline, to scale this type of contract negotiation, which is required to build the value chain so you can digitalize your data space. Long answer. I hope that... I have another question for the audience, maybe. By the raise of hand, who has an IT background? Okay, so I wasn't speaking Chinese.
More. IT background was the question. Oh.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks. The second point and this was not pre-agreed, yeah, but you made a nice introduction, Francesco. So the second point you mentioned now is the data economy, the value. It's for Alexander, the value of data and so on. So So we have seen the presentation of EU ProGiant. I think the use cases are very nice. We can understand how those use cases benefit especially the production companies. But what is the added value of using the Gaia-X framework, not any of the end data spaces, not any of the 1,000 technical possibilities to exchange those few pieces of data? So why Gaia-X framework? What is, I would not say maybe the monetary value, but what is the value? Why that one, not whatever else?
So the value, of course, every company decides by themselves what's important to them. You may have a supply chain, you may have certain things in your production, in your services where you know, if we can improve that, we make more money, we're more efficient, we have less problems. But of course, you need the whole environment that supports this optimization to make it possible. And as you said, thousands of services, that's exactly where it gets complicated, because if you are a smaller company and there are thousands of services available, the question is, what do you take? Or you're a bigger company that has hundreds of customers and you would have to sign a contract for every little small thing or an NDA, and it would have to go through the legal department, all of that. That's where we need a common way of working, and the Gaia-X is then the trust mechanism that makes it possible for all to automate that. So from the point of view of a production company at least, to automatize this. So when I want to optimize something, when I want to do something, I can then go to a service that was developed with the Gaia-X principles in mind, that is covered by it. And then I can just click, download the app, let this software run, improve all of my production processes, maybe save a lot of money over the next year. And that way it is done just with one click and without all those complicated steps to deal with that software. For example, if it's from a different country, that software company, if the data would be sent somewhere else, you have to get through all of the steps. And the goal of Gaia-X is that all of this can be done in one step and does not have to be done for every single thing again and again and again, because then it's just not worth it doing anymore. Then you just stay with the old technology and would not make any advancements.
This means that in a way we need to reach a critical mass, because otherwise you may have several frameworks, several providers, and each of them will say, okay, use ours, put everything in there, and you will have all the services there. So what do you think from your experience in EU ProGiant, and I know you have also other initiatives related to data spaces, what is this incentive? How is this critical mass? I mean, it's not yet there, but how can we reach the critical mass of companies involved in the initiative, and then we get this real added value of the data economy?
So now, of course, a big company has more resources and more incentive, because for them it's about millions of euros. For them it's possible to employ certain employees to just do that. So they will, of course, take the steps first. And then what we are doing is trying to set the entry barrier as low as possible, so that it is not a big financial decision to get into it, but that when you already see a potential for it to work, that you already join. Because you already see that there is a service available, that already in the services you use, these new things are applied. So it already fits your infrastructure, it already fits your system, it already fits your supply chain, and that you immediately see that there is no big risk in getting in there. One of the biggest risks probably is that you would not know how long it takes for your employees to get it running. You may need, well, traditionally, you may need software engineers who have to do a separate project. You have to go through the legal department. You have to go through all the economics. Some guy has to calculate how much it costs and how much it will be worth. You want to eliminate all of that by making it as simple as possible to get in there. So basically, it's just a subscription to a new service, or it's just a new work contract that you do. and with that, it's already covered. And only that way we can get the small and medium-sized companies in there, because they make up the bulk of the economy.
Yeah, this is exactly the challenge to get SMEs on board, of course, because that's the backbone also of the Slovenian economy. So maybe if we get to you, Boštjan, you are from a Slovenian SME. So as an SME in Slovenia, if we talk about the status in Slovenia, what do you do, and what are the challenges that you see when trying to get the most out of data to promote your services, at the end to sell your services? What do you see as a challenge related to Gaia-X, and maybe if you can challenge our colleagues from the association to answer to that?
Yeah, thank you. Perhaps the best way I describe it is through what we are currently doing. So we are actually part of two projects. One is Life Integrated Project with the Ministry of Environment and Spatial Planning, and now also the Energy. And the other is the IPSE Cloud Infrastructure Project. So the first project actually aims at reducing the waste in the area of construction and do the recycling, support the recycling cycles. And there we have a subtask of setting up digital material passports. So there is currently a lot happening in the area, especially in digital product passports. But also in digital material passports. So when we started the idea, okay, well, let's do it. Of course, we first scanned what already is there. We found out that there is a lot happening, but it's really isolated. So we, in this exact project, we are together with the partners. And for example, one of the important partners is the Civil Engineering Institute. And if I stress how we do it, how we see that digital material passport should look. So it's basically really similar to the personal passport, and you have the issuer. So the rules have to be first set on that area, who is authorized to issue it, and how it will be issued. Of course, it's a digital passport. It will be issued through digital services. Then you have to have a way to store it, and who is responsible for storage, and where it will be stored. Of course, I assume the owner of the passport is the one who requested it, who has it, and then you have to have a mechanism to check it. Of course, we immediately saw that Gaia-X here offers an important principles. How to guarantee the trust. So first, the trust of an issuer, then the trust of the one who will verify the validity, and not only the validity, but also the information within. So material has different certificates. It is composed out of other materials which also may or may not have passports. Yeah, and my next step was, okay, let's look what is already there within Gaia-X. Okay, I was happy to find the catalog, but I saw very quickly that it's in the .community, so it's a community catalog. And also when I tried to search for the if there's anything on materials and passports, I didn't find anything. Okay, perhaps there is already something, but and then I just took one random and tried to go deeper, and I couldn't. So you know, that are a few of the challenges that Gaia-X should reach as soon as possible the level that there is a possibility of searching, finding, and collaborating. And especially with the digital material passports, I would be interested, like I said, there is something happening. Madaster, I think it's the Dutch company that is the furthest, but they're really isolated the way I saw them. Then we contacted a few of the companies across Europe who set up some data models, but the data models are different. They belong to each project. And what I would be really glad is that I could say, okay, now I'm working on specifications for digital material passport, and I announce it so that somebody else who is also working in the same area also joins me, and we join forces in setting up the specifications. So there I see challenges for Gaia-X.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks a lot for this feedback. One important point that I get from it also, it's the importance of having a common vocabulary. As you said, if you start to describe your product, services, goods, clothes, cosmetic, cars, yogurt, food, product, using one vocabulary, and then you need to move to another platform to have an agreement with another type of partner, but they are using another type of vocabulary, then you need to do the work again. And that's why Gaia-X is really working with existing vocabulary to enable the description of the product. So Gaia-X is specified on data product, but the same principles of conformity assessment, of building those trust of information, to have this decentralized knowledge graph of claims and so on, is security, tamper-proof credentials, can be applied to a very wide range of vertical ecosystems. When I'm mentioning that we are reusing vocabulary, we are using, for example, the vocabulary from the European Commissions. The European Commission is funding a lot of European projects. They have already common vocabulary. They have a special project which is called semantic interoperability, where they have vocabulary of how you describe a business entity, how you describe a personal entity. And Gaia-X is not inventing something new. We just say, okay, there is a common agreement and a market direction that towards adopting that. Let's pick this one. We've done the same thing for data product. Again, some of the partners in Europe are using DCAT. It's a standard to describe data product. We are not inventing a new way to describe product. We just say that seems to be converging there. Let's align. Let's promote that usage. And Gaia-X is working with all other initiatives in Europe to make sure that, to make it short, to avoid the locking effect. We want to really enable more transaction, the data value of, that we talked about. And that can be done if this is efficient, cheap, reliable. So in terms of security, we use state-of-the-art encryption for keys. The vocabularies, we use existing ones. We try to really reduce the amount of, to avoid this not invented here effect. So we avoid really starting from scratch to enable the scenario that you describe. And a final note on the catalog. That was the catalog that was done by the community last year. And this year at the summit in November in Alicante, Spain, we will demonstrate, we will present how we've managed to build a network of catalogs. So not just one instance, but catalogs that are owned, run by different partners, and synchronized. Because we wanted to avoid creating a gravity effect around one or two instances catalogs like we have for search engines for the web right now. So that's coming.
If I may add on that, because Pierre sometimes jumps into things that not everybody is aware of, so which are the technical gearings of the Gaia-X frame.
He is the CTO.
He is the CTO, I know him very well. And sometimes he's also too technical, and it doesn't say, yes, we have it. But to go back to the point, you were talking about material passport, material digital passport, or product digital passport. I tell you an anecdote, a story. Some time ago, this gentleman and me had a meeting with the European Commission, coming to our offices to talk about the digital product passport. And they said, well, we understand that this has to be extended to cover potentially any sort of thing. And we understand you are doing something within Gaia-X that actually can be used to describe any sort of thing. So it really doesn't matter whether you're talking about a data, so a data API, or a single piece of data, or an algorithm, or an AI application, or a storage. It doesn't matter. You can describe whatever you want. And what Gaia-X describes is the identity of the provider, the characteristics, the self-description that was mentioned before, which is composed of any sort of attribute. Like Pierre said, we are using existing ontologies and catalogs, but the model is open because we can't, predict all possible descriptions. So we are open to anyone to extend the model, and therefore you can extend or describe a material using the Gaia-X engine and describing specific attributes that apply to a material and maybe not to a data service. It's open. Do not expect or wait for someone to do it for you, because this may not happen. So if you do it, you will have the possibility to populate the catalog with your service, which now is not possible. You said I cannot deep dive. True, because this is still a demo catalog, but you will be able to deep dive and go through. But what we expect, and Flavio, you said the need is to reach a critical mass. What we need is a critical mass. So we need more and more services to be published. We need more and more projects. We need more and more use cases. So please do that. One last comment is about SMEs. Now, you may think that this is for large companies. No, and let me explain you why. Large companies, to some extent, need SMEs. And in general, there is no business sector in Europe that can survive without small, medium business. No one. You can name anyone. What is the problem of small, medium business in the age of data economy? They are scared to give out their, maybe, intellectual property. They realize that maybe they have very good data, but they are so scared about the big players, and they are so scared about the big data platforms they have no control on. So we are giving an opportunity to small, medium business to become visible, exposing their services in a very common way. So in a very easy and cheap, actually free of charge way, to trust others that provide services adopting the same standard, to become part of large federations where there is big players and small players that play, let me say, at the same level, and to federate to stay and remain competitive in a market that otherwise will kill small, medium business. So it's the cooperative model. It's a very old economical model. It's the cooperative. Federations are the digital version of a cooperative. And this is the only way to survive in an economy that is pricing just the big ones. And in Europe, we don't have big ones. We have just a handful of them. All the rest, 80%, 90% is small, medium business or micro business.
Thank you for touching the SME topic, because this is very important for the Slovenian economy as well. Maybe if we go to a more concrete example, Alexander. So suppose Boštjan from Result would like to try one of the use cases that you have developed. Is it possible to join? I mean, in general, maybe later for you, Pierre, for Lighthouse project, is it possible to join somehow, or are we just the spectators waiting for something to happen? Do you have any experience with this expansion of the network?
Yes. So the Alpro Gigant, this is of course something planned with specific company partners, but we already founded the AMIT, which is the Austrian Innovation Manufacturing Data Space, which is based on Gaia-X. What we do there in that case is we have the production in Vienna, we have the production of the university in Graz, we have the production of the university in Linz. So we already set up our own data space So we can implement questions from companies like his as easy as possible. So we already look for what kind of parts do we produce, what kind of services do we implement. For example, one of the services would be from Siemens through the Siemens MindSphere to make this CO2 equivalent calculation and optimization. And we try to get as many real components into this as possible, and any company that wants to join is invited to come to us to come with projects, because then we can test it. Then we can test how those things work. Then we can test where the challenges are, because we have, of course, different servers at different places, so that we as small laboratories can work in the same way as if we were a big corporation with 10,000s of employees who all use the same network and where there's no legal problems or anything. But we want to do it in the way that it's completely decentralized, and then, of course, invite anyone to join there. But our focus, of course, is small and medium-sized companies. So we say a range of maybe 100 kilometers around where we're stationed. That's who we really attract. And that's the reason why there are 300 more digital innovation hubs in Europe. 3 of them are here in Slovenia. There are people connected to that here from the university as well. There is the Gaia-X hub here. So through those measures, there are many opportunities, many projects. And of course, from my side, from Austria, I can give examples of how this works. If it makes sense for a Slovenian company to join the Austrian project, I don't know. But that's the reason why the idea is to offer these opportunities and services everywhere, where it's really easy to come by for a meeting, look at that, and find ways how to get this going. Because we always need the whole ecosystem for it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. One last quick question about SMEs, then we change topic. I don't know, Francesco or Pierre, in your experience, okay, you have explained why and why and how we build this trust. So, in your experience, SMEs, what are the main obstacles they find when joining Gaia-X? Very formally joining the association, but also doing some real work, because being engaged in an association, in projects and so on, for a small company, if I have 10 employees and you tell me, at least you have to invest, I don't know, half a person, it's a no-go, right? So what are the obstacles and how they overcome them?
Yeah, the main problems is time, of course, because if you're a small company and you join the association, okay, you have a cost of subscription, but typically it's pretty small. It can be around 5,000 euros a year for a small company. But that's typically not the problem. The problem is dedicating someone to work in the working groups or to study the documentation to understand basically what Gaia-X is. But I believe that if the work is done in a structured way, it can be done. In other words, you don't have to sit in all the meetings of all the working groups. And there is a ramp-up time where you need to study a little bit. Being part of the association gives you a big advantage. So sitting here in this room today in front of Pierre or myself, it's not so common because unfortunately we are very busy. Being part of the association gives direct access to all our team, all our experts, and therefore is an accelerator for those that, in particular small medium business, need to ramp up quickly. And the paradox is that if you are small, you can be faster, although you struggle finding the resources. The second problem is not knowing what you want to achieve. If you have too confused or too big expectations, you may not achieve something. If you have very specific expectations, like I want to make money out of it in 6 months, you may not succeed. If you are smart, and you look around and say, okay, I want to look into Gaia-X and understand how to make my product or service Gaia-X compliant, because I know this is going to be an advantage in the market in the next 6 to 12 months. Or I want to know whether me, as an SME, I can work in one of the projects I have seen, because I know I can provide an advantage, or I know I can become part of a network that will become competitive in the market. So if you have some specific objectives, even if you're an SME, you can be faster, invest the right resources, and obtain bigger results than large companies. It's a paradox. This is my view. I don't know, Pierre, what you think.
I will try to answer by bringing a solution. There are challenges, but big corporations also have their own challenges. One of the things that drastically changed within the course of the last 6 months is that we started to release our first Docker images. We started to release our first APIs. And the SMEs are way more agile to use them, to test them, than big corporations that usually require to have first an assignment of program manager that might include that in the next roadmap, in the next sprint management, and so on. That might take a few months. Small SMEs, we receive a lot of feedback through our Git, so we develop all the source code through Git. The license are open source. We have Slack, Matrix, Element channels. We don't have IRC. And we receive feedback from developers. So developers to developers. Hey, how do I use the API? So we wrote tutorials. How do I deploy the services? So we wrote Helm charts for Kubernetes. Can you write a small guide on how do you call the API or the sequence of API? So we wrote a wizard. And we do that with the community that is helping us, and most of the feedback we receive are from SMEs. So I will say that, yes, at the beginning of Gaia-X, that might struggle a bit because the project was still shaping itself. We are now 2 years later. It's way clearer, crisper, and I will say that onboarding SMEs can be even faster than other type of organization.
Okay, so it's the right time for SMEs to start joining so they don't.
And we have the catalog,
right?
and the catalog synchronization, so there is benefit for them to be part of that catalog, to be visible. So no, it's a good time.
It's a good time. Good. Francesco, one of the important activities of Gaia-X is collaboration with governments. Why? What is the goal? I mean, we understand the collaboration with industry, with research to some extent, with the European Commission to shape the policies. Why is not top down? The European Commission will take care. Why do you want this very strong relation with governments?
Yeah, I will answer your question shortly, but let me just go back to the SMEs, because I think it's a very important and relevant point. You said something right. Is this the best moment for an SME to join? Yes, but let me explain you why. We are now at the point where the Gaia-X framework is available. So we have the software components, we have the technical specs are complete, and we are deploying the clearinghouses. So we are deploying these nodes of execution for the, let me say, clearance services for Gaia-X. We will deploy this synchronized network of catalogs, which means that there's going to be one virtual public catalog of Gaia-X compliant services very soon visible in the market. So you can imagine that a small, medium business can be faster in publishing their services, faster becoming visible in the market, and take the best advantage out of Gaia-X without having to start from scratch now. So I invite all the SMEs to think about that, because it's going to be a cheap effort, if known at all. It's going to be a business opportunity, because if you are small, you have nothing to hide. You can imagine if you are a large player, you don't want to be transparent, you don't want to be controllable, you don't want to be interoperable, you don't want to show all the characteristics of your services, you want to show that your services run in the United States or in China instead of Europe. If you're a small one, maybe that is going to be a visible, nice feature, and you are becoming competitive with larger ones. So think about that. It's a good time, and it's a good opportunity, in particular for SMEs. We have always thought about that. To your question, why is government important? We have a governmental advisory board, which is an external board, so it's not ruling the association. It's not the board of directors. The governmental advisory board is composed of the representatives from the governments and the ministry is dedicated to digitalization. It may be the Ministry of Economic Development or a dedicated Ministry of Digitalization, depending on the member states, and of those countries that have already a hub, a Gaia-X hub locally. So nowadays we have a governmental advisory board made of 15 people coming from the ministries of 15 European countries, plus representatives from the European Commission DG Connect, plus representatives from the Gaia-X Association. This is led and under the governance of these governmental representatives, is not ruled by us. And the reason for it is that we regularly meet twice a year, and around the table, all the governments say, these are our priorities in our countries in terms of digitalization. This is what we see our hubs doing. Show us what you are doing in Gaia-X, and all together we try to understand how to steer, if you want, the project in order to fulfill the needs of those governments. Not because Gaia-X wants to be a project satisfying government needs, but because those governments are feeding the local economy and need to make digital transformations for purpose. And the problem they have is that sometimes they don't know what to do. So what they see in Gaia-X is an incredible opportunity, because we have a single framework, a lot of members representing the real economy, in particular the European economy. 20 plus hubs representing the local economy of Slovenia, Germany, France, Italy, etc., etc. Lots of companies, many more around those hubs, real projects and real use cases that are ready to be put on the table of the governments. On the other side, the governments say, yes, we are interested in Spain in investing in the tourism sector. In Germany, we are interested in investing in the manufacturing sector, and on and on and on. And this place becomes the place where we combine the needs, the opportunity, and the funding, and we steer and drive the local hubs in the direction the governments want. If you think about that, it's pretty unique, because our model requires that every single hub has got a single point of contact in the government. So the Slovenian hub has a one person nominated in the government they can talk to, and the other way around. And then we put together all these governments twice a year, and we ask them, what are your priorities for digitalization? Believe me, this is not happening. Even in interministerial meetings, nobody is putting around all the European countries to let them speak and say, this is what we want to do, how can you help? That's why it is interesting. It's not a political thing. Actually, it's a steering committee, if you want, that helps connecting the political world with the business world with the Gaia-X initiative. I don't know if that's clear enough.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Can one thing?
Sure.
And this is, even as a CTO and tech and developers, this is quite unique thing about Gaia-X. This link between the legal and the government and the tech. So Gaia-X is not just yet another software component you can deploy. That will not bring anything valuable. That's because it comes with rules on how to operationalize. I wanted to keep it short, so I will stop here. But that's really something unique. Gaia-X, with the link to the government board, with the establishment of rules on how to operationalize, it's making something unique that a simple software development that they can take on any repository will not be able to achieve.
okay, thank you. Yeah, we also see this this happening in a way that this awareness is raising everyone. What about? So we have discussed a lot about trust. Now there is often this trade-off between privacy, between security, between trust, so on, and innovation. How do we keep the balance in Gaia-X so we allow innovation but still keep the trust? Yeah, my data has value, and if it fosters innovation, I want to have something out of it.
There are several ways in the organization and the architecture when we have these challenges on the data transaction, on the publication to the catalog, for example. Not everyone wants to be in the catalog. For the catalog, it's simple. It works like most search engines right now. You publish your services, but you publish the URL of where your services is available. The catalog synchronizes those URL. And then as a user, you start to write your query, you get the results, but you don't get the final information from the catalog. The catalog just gives you back an abstract, and then you have to ask the holder of the information, like when you're visiting a website and you use any search engine right now, you have to go and visit it yourself. And if the website, if the holder of the data has additional access right control, then you have to go through those checks. About the data exchange, this notion of trust and confidentiality is something that is happening peer-to-peer between the parties. Gaia-X is not playing the role of data. The Gaia-X Association, as a legal entity, is not a data intermediaries. So the data goes from party A to B, the one that are signing the contract, and the contract itself is not signed with Gaia-X. It's between A and B. Gaia-X enables the procedure on how to establish this contract, so to help. Gaia-X can help to write the clauses of that contract so that it's easier to read and you have some templates, but we are not part of the business relation between parties.
Okay. You wanted to come? Sorry.
There is another way to reply to your question is about, if I get it right, is like, okay, there is regulations, there is trust, but there is innovation. It's kind of clashing. The more I restrict you, the less I let you innovate. If that's part of the question, let me try to answer that. I think, and I was talking at the coffee break about this, I think that we are living a moment where Europe is hyper-regulating digital in a way that it's becoming, the paradox is that the more regulation we have, the less trust we have in technology, because you cannot verify actually that the technology you buy or use comply with that increasing entropy of regulation. So the simple paradigm shift that I used to make this, is not a joke actually, is a real concept. I think that Gaia-X is introducing a paradigm shift from technology regulation to regulation technology. So from tech reg to reg tech. Gaia-X is a kind of a reg tech engine. We cannot avoid regulation, we cannot replace regulation, but we realized, in particular for SMEs, that unless you have an awful lot of money to invest to understand the Data Governance Act, Digital Service Act, the Data Act, the AI Act, you will not be able to stand in the market. It's just too expensive. And even if you do that, it's not clear whether you will be capable or not to demonstrate that your services are compliant. So what we are introducing is a kind of simplification on the way you can trust a service. It's very simple. We provide transparency, controllability, and interoperability in terms of description. We're not judging. We are providing a tool that gives you this transparency. This frees up your time and money to dedicate to innovation. Think about, let's make an example. Everybody knows ChatGPT and what OpenAI has triggered in the world. I was with the Commission when they were issuing the first version of the AI Act for the approval of the Parliament before starting the trilogue. So they stopped it in May because of ChatGPT. When I was talking to some, directors of the Commission, they told me, hey, Francesco, you saw what happened. What do we do now? What is your opinion? And I said, look, trying to describe and protect or define the ways you can control AI is like, trying to, swipe the sea. You will never be able to do that. So generative AI has been there since 15 years. If we realize now that a Gen AI application can do those type of things, the problem is that the regulation cannot prevent it. My approach would be that we need a regulation to define what are the rules to trust a service, like a passport, and develop services that can verify those rules. In this way, for ChatGPT, you could control the source of data, the destination of generated data, the source of data models, the way they protect, for example, proprietary IP or personal data, where they store it or not. And they are free to show it or not, but it's freedom of choice for me to select them or not. I'm Italian. Maybe you remember that the only country in Europe that decided to stop the ChatGPT services was Italy. Not many know that this was pretty much criticized also in Italy, but not many knows that actually this was not a decision of the privacy owner. It was the question was, please, OpenAI, tell us where you store the data. And OpenAI said, no, thanks, we're going to stop the service. So that was actually the story. Mm-hmm. So you can understand, when you ask for transparency, and somebody say, thanks, no. That's what we need to, we miss these transparency mechanisms, and this will free up money, resources, and time for innovation, in particular for SME.
Okay, this is a really great argument. So maybe to Alexander and Pushtian, okay, you have already used the framework, you are kind of ramping up. Do you see that it helps you to be compliant with the legislation? Exactly that, so you don't have to invest a lot in implementing solutions that would be compliant, but that the framework makes the job easier because at the end it's a boring job to do that. Yeah, you want to do innovation.
Well, the short answer is it doesn't. I believe it does not ease the way my responsibility for compliance with GDPR. I have to make sure it just helps me express it. So I still have to do everything, but I have a checklist, and that if it is published that I'm Gaia-X compliant, somebody trusts this. So even though you are avoiding this, but I still see Gaia-X as not really a certification agency, but somebody who will confirm some form and that all the necessary steps to trust were taken. So that's how I see it.
Let me add one thing, because again, we don't have time to go into the detail, but let me make a simple example. You want to buy a cloud service from a large cloud service provider, not making any names here. You go to them, they tell you, yes, we are GDPR compliant, of course, by the law. Of course, we are ISO 2728 compliant, ISO 9000, whatever. Of course, we store data in Europe, okay? Then you ask for proofs. And so you go on the website. That's the way it is today. So procurement relationship with supplier is quite complicated because they don't have possibly the right level of trust they want. With the new Gaia-X approach, you as a supplier countersign with your digital signature, which is tied to you as an individual belonging to that organization, that this service you are offering is made of these characteristics. And you can list the characteristics you want. You're not forced to show all of them, but you are countersigning, so you become legally bound to those declarations as an individual. Look, this is, a huge difference, extremely big. That's what exactly he said. So in terms of trust, this gives you an awful lot of more trust because I attach a face and a legal commitment to a statement that nowadays is just written somewhere in the website. Watch out.
Mm-hmm. About making things possible, from our point of view, it's necessary that we have Gaia-X. Because imagine a project where we help a company do a software service, and we are the laboratory where we have the machines to test it. So due to terms of efficiency, they cannot test it in a running production because that would stop the production, would cost a lot of money. We have the machines for that. We may be able to produce the data that's needed for the service and all of that. And projects start nicely, everything works, and suddenly the legal department steps in and says, oh no, not possible, we cannot send that data there. We cannot apply this on a certain server. So suddenly you're at a halt until somebody allows it again. And basically in the past, the only option was that the CEO or somebody who takes the responsibility says, I trust this, let's do that. But this takes NDAs, this takes contracts, it takes all of that. And we are just, as a research institution, we just do like one try of things. We don't do that every day 100 of times. So if we want to make an economy where we really work together in that way, we need a framework where this is automated, where this is done by just a few clicks, and then it's already done. So we do not have to get through the legal department and call the CEO to do that, but we can do all of those steps at once, and if we want to integrate another partner, and we need something else for infrastructure and environment, we can implement that without waiting for years until some person finally puts the signature under it.
Mm-hmm. We are not going to get into smart contracts and blockchains, but is the way to go probably, right? Okay, maybe the opportunity also for the public to ask few questions. Yeah, Andrei?
Hvala. Andrei Kotarandava. So, okay, my understanding is that the Gaia-X is or will be a trusted framework which will enable different entities, companies, and so on to actually offer their services and use the services from each other on safe, transparent way, and so on. But the question is, so if at the beginning you said that the goal of the European Commission and so on is to boost the economy, the data economy, and so on. So if everybody would be able to, I don't know, define, publish their services and so on, and you also said that Gaia-X is not the standardization organization. So how would this platform boost digital economy? Because nobody would, just by using the Gaia-X framework, be able to understand each other. So, or for example, the colleague presented, the common projects that they have between German car manufacturers and so on, So if I'm a producer of car parts that I sell to, I don't know, global European car producers, and BMW would define their own definition of, I don't know, product, services, and so on that they would like to buy. Renault would define their own. So how would I be able to take advantage of this, So wouldn't the standardization of the services be a critical part of this framework?
Okay, so we keep repeating we are not a formal body of standard. Yes, this is true, because a formal body of standard is like SEN, Senelec, ETSI. These are bodies of standard. They are in charge for defining new standards. For example, the stamp CE you have on your device is verified through those standard organizations. If we were a standard organization, we would not be a private association, of course, and would be basically sponsored and funded by the Commission, and everything we decide would be subject to, let me say, the political action. It's not something you can invent, okay? Instead, we decided to be a private association, which means we want to be the voice of the market. In other words, we don't want to invent a new standard to force Europe to do something because the legislators decided to do that. We want to collect the voice of the market, international market, define a common set of rules that those representatives of the market agree, and define a technology framework to verify that. The way to make it a standard is to ensure the market adopts it. The way the market adopts it is through the publication of services, through the catalogs, and through projects like EuroProGigant, Catena-X, and all the others. The more companies we have involved in projects, the more projects we have, the more services are published, the more services compliant to the Gaia-X framework are realized, the more Gaia-X will become a de facto standard. What is the difference? We are building something that is missing in the market, because what we have explained, that is, we are missing this type of common trust engine. Is needed by the market, and we have been the first doing it. So this is a competitive advantage, but in order to succeed, we need to have the projects. The standard would be fantastic. So one way is that if we reach the critical mass of projects, services, etc., the Commission will not be blind and will see that we are becoming a de facto standard. And actually, they've already started seeing us. So if you look into the tenders of the European Commission, they always reference Gaia-X as one of the reference open specifications that are required. So there is two ways to do things. You can force it top-down, or you can convince the market that this is a good thing. We choose the second, which is maybe more difficult, but extremely more effective, because we are not influenced by any political entity. We are not funded by any public institution. We represent the voice of the market. And this is proving to be effective. Takes longer, of course.
Maybe, Francesco, clarification, if Gaia-X is adopting standards, right? So on a lower level...
Absolutely. We are not inventing new standards. We are adopting existing standards, but we are not, let me say, inventing a new standard. We hope Gaia-X will become a standard, but we need a standard organization to adopt it and make it a standard. We don't want to replace them.
But on a lower level, like Pierre said, we use common vocabularies from the Commission and so on. So existing things are taken in. It's not
reuse everything is available. And by the way, the core mechanism, Pierre can explain that behind our trust are based on the W3C consortium, so it's all stuff that is out there.
You wanted to?
A very small remark. So every industry uses different softwares, uses different services, uses different ways of doing it. And that way, within their environment, within their supply chain, the companies choose which way they want to work, what they want to work with. And that's why the catalogs are built in a way that everybody can publish there, because then you find something that fits your work, that you can integrate it directly in the software you're already using and not have to change your whole production environment, in our case in production area, to invest a lot of time, a lot of effort just to comply with that. You want the services to exist already in what you're using. And that's where the things are going towards, that every company can develop their own things and use this way of working.
Thank you. There is a hand there. Yeah, Gabor, please.
Thank you. Gabor Tersiglov. I have one question regarding the Gaia-X framework, so basically the technical components. So there was a lot of times said that Gaia-X is not technical framework, so you also today confirmed that you're basically economic framework for the future. But on the other hand, you also have components. So you have Gaia-X connectors, then you have in the framework, you have Gaia-X registry and so on. And my question would be, is the goal of the foundation to just create components for the reference architecture and then to leave the market to do the actual production grade components, or will basically Gaia-X components, is their goal to be production grade? For example, if now someone is building a data space would you recommend him to use, for example, your registry, or what's your goal and focus on this?
Yes. There was one question: will you advise a data space to use Gaia-X registry and the software component? Yes. The footprint, the technical footprint of Gaia-X software development is extremely small. We rely on the claim from RDF. RDF, that's a standard from the W3C. We encapsulate those claims in verifiable answers. That's another standard from the W3C. We use the registry using the same API from the EPSI. The EPSI, that's the European Blockchain Service Infrastructure. We are decentralizing the implementation of the registry in the next version using IPFS. IPFS is yet another framework that I've been using for some time now, years. So we really try to, I know that you told me that not say it, but as software, for software developer in the room, please keep it for that. We try to be lazy. We try to reuse, no, we are not lazy, we work hard, but we reuse as much as possible of the existing mature components that are there and adopted by the market. Another thing, when we write the rules, we work with other initiatives so that the Gaia-X Trust Framework is interoperable with other association initiatives. So their participants become de facto Gaia-X participants, and our participants are also recognized within their ecosystem. The interoperability is between the technical stack, how do you sign, which type of elliptic curve signature you will use, RSA, ED 25519, what type of algorithm will you use to hash your tokens. All of those are technical implementation. But when you have an identity, the identity, for example, the trustworthiness of an identity, that's directly linked to the KYB process. Know your customer, know your business, the process there. And for that, we work on the rules, on the interoperability of the rules with other initiatives. So I will say yes.
Thank you, Pierre. Any other questions from the public? Matitz, please.
Yes, thank you. Matitz here from XLab. I have one question just for practical reasons. For example, if you're a company and you would have a data and you would like to publish it. So if it's a private data, you can still do it, I guess. And the question is how you can do that. What are those steps? Because if I understand, okay, you need to have, you need to create your sub-description, for example. You need to do some things so that somebody can find that data. Then you have some descriptors, I guess, to somebody knows what that data is and what you can provide. But at the end, Gaia-X, it seems that provide me just the fact how I can publish it, how can I make a contract of usage, but what is afterwards? Yeah.
That's a very difficult question that has no answer right now on the market. What we work is in different steps. When you exchange data, the first thing is the access control. That's rather a binary things, and you don't need any special connector for doing that. FTP servers in the 90s were already doing that, so we know how to implement access control. Then you have usage control. So how do you negotiate the policy? You have offer, request, and an agreement. That's the intent to be legally binding. And then you have the usage enforcement. So once the data left the premises of your enclave or the container of where it is, how do you technically enforce that the data is being used as written in the agreement? Right now, state of the art, you sign a contract.
So it's just legally now kind of you're legally bounded that you're doing it, and
that's the first option.
You should do in a way that...
The thing that we are working on is how to, technically speaking, enforce that. Mm-hmm. So for example, we are working with trusted enclave to enforce that the data doesn't leave the premises of the enclave, that you can sign the binary that is being there, and you can verify the signature of the binary so you know exactly what type of instructions are being executed. You can use federated learning, so you know that the data doesn't leave the premises and only the weight of your network are exported. There are a few options. Homomorphic encryption for the most fancy ones, but all those solutions are usage enforcement, and that's come as the third step in that process of data access control, fairly simple, usage negotiation, and then usage enforcement.
If you allow me another question. So you said that, okay, you would like to also automatize the signing, let me say, so that it will be faster in a way. And if I would be a CEO and I would like to share, for example, private data with some AI company that does it, something with that, et cetera, and yeah, this is a still the same heavy thing to be done with Gaia-X or before, because I still need to know to trust my people that they tell me what is in that data, if it's really prepared in a way it's GDPR compliant, et cetera, et cetera. Have you thought about the services that actually you could throw in the data and service would just say, okay, you have these problems in that data that you might consider if you can share because of some legal things, or that you would be able actually, the service that would say, okay, I would like to rename names out, I would like to rename, to put something so that service would help CEO to understand what he's sharing, because then he will be able to do that. Currently, nobody shares data because what the hell is in the data, they don't know when they are CEO, because they are so far away from that problem on the frontier.
We are doing something halfway there when we implement a policy reasoning engine. So analyzing the data can be quite hard, and there are already business partners doing that. So this is, I think, not Gaia-X's job to do that. It will be more efficient to partner with an SMEs, maybe acquire technology, but that's maybe something that the partner on the market will have to do. The thing that we can do is to help with the policy reasoning. So what you said, for example, how does the CEO allow his employee to maybe share the data or consume the data? The CEO can express the policy that he will do right delegation. And the right delegation can be, again, either a paper that you sign or a policy that you express. And expressing policy for right delegation is something that we know how to do. ODRL, Open Digital Right Language from the W3C spec. That's used by ADSA, that's used by iShare, that's used by Fireware, that's used by many other organizations. And Gaia-X is joining the movement to create a momentum around there. So when you express your policy using this language on company A, those right delegation will be able to be understood and perform reasoning on them on company B. If your company start to continue to describe the policy language or the policy using custom in-house information, then yes, well, that's not interoperable. But that's an internal decision of the CEO of the company.
Thank you, Pierre. So from the face of Matisse, I see that this discussion will continue in the networking session. We are about to close the panel, the roundtable, but it's not the end of our event. We will continue with the networking outside. Maybe a closing remark from everyone, 35 seconds per person.
Just thank you, and I hope this is the beginning of multiple sessions here in Slovenia around Gaia-X, and my only ask is to be active part of the activities that we're doing. So all the questions you raised today should be possibly raised inside the working groups of the association. That will be very useful.
Same. I saved 35 seconds. No, thank you very much.
From the side of hubs and universities, I can just say be proactive, ask the right questions, because we try to figure out how to do the things, how to do them practically, and we need the questions from the industry. We need you to ask what actually your problems are, what you want solved, that we can then figure out how to really do that, to apply it.
Yeah, for the SMEs, as soon as you are working on the data that you know will be exchangeable, think about Gaia-X.
Thank you, Boštjan. So if you remember one thing from the event, it's the right time for SMEs to jump on the train. And with this, I let Gregor close. close the event.
Yes. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your discussion. Of course, this is for you. It was intense and constructive. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, with this conclusion of this exceptional Gaia-X current state and Slovenian ecosystem panel discussion, we wish to express our gratitude to all the panelists, speakers, partners, and of course all of you for creating this remarkable event. A heartfelt thank you goes also to the Gaia-X European Association for Data and Cloud, AISBL, Gaia-X Hub Slovenia, the ICT Horizontal Network, and the ICT Association of Slovenia, the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Slovenia, for organizing this event. This conference sort of united us in a shared discourse about the future of digital transformation, innovation, and sustainable development through the diversity of perspectives of our speakers. Of course, we all gained insights into numerous phases how Gaia-X shapes and influences our digital world. As the official part of the conference comes to an end, we warmly invite all of you for a relaxed gathering in the foyer. This is an opportunity to connect, to continue discussion, to deepen our networking issues, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much.